All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Humans in Space Challenge briefing session, co-hosted by Boryang Axiom Space and Aurelia Institute, and in partnership with Earth&Beyond Ventures, our official Israel partner. Really excited about what we will be discussing today. But first of all, my name is Betty Won, and I'm an investment manager here at Boryang, and I'm also here with my colleague today to share with you more about humans in space. So without further ado, we have a lot of valuable insights to gain from today's session. So let's go on to the agenda. So first, we will be sharing with you all about the Humans in Space Challenge. So starting with what Humans in Space is, followed by the benefits offered to the participants and awardees, and more information on the challenge topic and the overall timeline for this year. And today we are also blessed with amazing and esteemed pool of guest speakers joining us today. So we have Audrey Berthier, the Executive Director of MEDIS. And MEDIS is a renowned institute for space medicine and physiology based on France, Europe, established in 1989. And the institution worked with global space agencies from ESA, CNES, NASA, and more to support and protect human life in space and on Earth. We are also here together with Zack Fagan, who is a partner at Earth&Beyond Ventures. So Earth&Beyond Ventures is the leading VC in the deep technology for new space sector in Israel. It has been working with prominent LPs and partners in Israel and across different countries around the world. And last but not least, we have Harel Baris, the head of ARC Space Lab. So ARC Space Lab is a part of a bigger innovation initiative led by Sheba, the largest hospital in Israel. And the Space Lab supports experiments and medical research under the unique condition of space. So each of these guest speakers will be sharing more about the investor perspective and the kind of problems and innovation challenges that we face as human exploration expanded beyond Earth. Lastly, we'll be having our Q&A session. So it's going to be a live Q&A. So please feel free to send us your questions through the chat box function throughout the session. We'll also be answering some of the questions that were sent to us prior to the briefing session. And for the live questions, your questions will be only visible to the panelists, so please feel free to send anything that you are curious about. Okay, now moving on to introducing Humans in Space. So Humans in Space is actually the second annual Care in Space initiative with the goal of forming a global space ecosystem. So last year, we hosted the inaugural CIS challenge where we called for startups supporting human life in space, supporting astronauts' healthcare. And all the finalists had the chance to pitch and receive questions from renowned space healthcare experts such as NASA HRP, Trish, Harvard, and Stanford. And finally, the 6 awardees received $100,000 of equity investment, access to space-tailored accelerator program, and the opportunity to present their idea to a group of international investors and corporations at the Grand Demo Day. And as you can see here, this is actual photo taken from our demo day. We had the demo day under the iconic space shuttle Endeavour, and it was really exciting to see these innovative ideas on space healthcare and engaging with all the space enthusiasts. But so your question may be, how about this year? So this year we are actually going bigger, and so a bigger vision. So from Care in Space Challenge that only focused on space healthcare, we're going bigger in terms of our vision and going beyond healthcare. So we're covering space lifestyle and space platform ideas and innovations. So we'll share more about the challenge topics, more specific details on the challenge topics later. But we're also going bigger in terms of the applicant pool. So last year, we only called for startup applicants, but this year we're calling for startups and researchers who are daring to shape the future of humanity in space. Thirdly, we are going bigger in terms of ecosystem. So as you can see here, All these partners and experts are those that you will be working with when you enter the challenge. So you will get a chance to interact and be evaluated by the distinguished judges who has led space projects of NASA and other space agencies, and those who have been recognized by the government for their research in space. You will also get to interact and network with international pool of leading investors in both space, healthcare, and engineering or data analytics sector. Plus, for the finalists, you will even get the chance to be mentored by these leading figures. So I hope you all don't miss the chance to expand your network of collaborators, mentors, and investors through the Humans in Space Challenge and the Grand Humans in Space Symposium to be held in mid-October. Next, moving on to the award section. If we can go. So we are also going bigger in terms of the awards. So up to 10 startup awardees will be provided with $100,000 of equity investment. For researchers, up to 7 research awardees will be given $30,000 of research prize. So for the research prize, we do not require any share of IP or research discoveries found through the fund. And plus, for eligible startup awardees, you will even get the chance to see your experiment in future Axiom space mission through the $500,000 worth of startup credit program. And there are a lot of other benefits waiting for you. You can check. So we have the $15,000 of AWS credit program and other benefits that you'll be able to see in our website, www.carenspace.com. And we're really excited to discover and support early stage researches and innovations as they advance to space together with our partners. So now moving on to the challenge topic. Basically, we're looking for ideas that benefit human life in space and through space. So as you can see, there are 2 main domains that are being covered through the challenge. The first is the space exploration domain that basically covers researches and innovations that support human life in space. And for space utilization, we're looking for innovations that utilizes the space environment to bring back the benefit down to Earth in solving Earth-based healthcare challenges. Going deeper into the space exploration domain, we have 4 subdomains under here. First is the space healthcare research, which is going to be the only research that's going to be the only topic for the research applicants. So as you can see, we are looking at key space health hazards identified by NASA HRP that are categorized into 7 body systems. So an example for this subtopic would be like reduced muscle size and decompression sickness that are experienced by astronauts when they go to space. The second subdomain would be the space healthcare journey. So we're looking for startups that with healthcare technologies that protect, monitor, or treat astronauts' health. So an example is cardiac monitoring device or in-space surgical devices. And moving on to the third subdomain, we have the in-space lifestyle topic. So basically technologies that flourish human stay in space, such as in-space entertainment or space habitat temperature control system. So, or any innovations that support or flourish human habitation in space. So an example of that would be air revitalization system or in-space musical instrument. So you can be very creative about this. And lastly, for the space exploration domain, we have data and analytics. Very obvious from the name, we are looking for software and hardware technologies that collect, store, and analyze data to support astronauts' decision-making in space. Now, moving on to the space utilization domain, where we focus on innovations that utilize the space environment to solve Earth-based healthcare challenges. We have 3 subdomains here. First is bio R&D platform. basically referring to technologies that aid life science experiments in space, like, for example, cell culture platform or organ on a chip. And the second subdomain would be the molecule and therapeutics. So basically experimentation and manufacturing of therapeutics and biomaterials in space. So an example would be regenerative medicine or drug delivery enhancement technologies. And last but not least, we have the biomedical equipment. So medical equipment that is expected to benefit tremendously through in-space experiments, such as medical implant or biological marking tool. So that's basically the overview of this year's Humans in Space Challenge topics, but you can read more detailed explanations and more examples in our website. So when you explore through the Humans in Space Challenge section of our website, you'll be able to find a PDF file with more detailed explanations to it. Now, going into the timeline for this year's program. So this is basically a timeline for the rest of the year. As you know, we have already started the challenge application. So we have started accepting applications from May 23rd, and we'll be closing the application on July 28th. And as you know, we have less than 3 weeks left before the closing. But we highly encourage applicants to submit their application as soon as possible, because to give ample amount of time for the evaluators to review your application. And also, you may also be experiencing some technical difficulties during the last few days of submission, as a lot of applicants tend to submit their application during those times. Following the close of application, we'll be announcing the semi-finalists during the first 2 weeks of August. And the semi-finalists will be doing their live pitch in a virtual finalist selection. So it's like a Zoom-based pitch day where you will be presenting live and answering questions from investors or other judges within your field of within the field of your application. And next we have this. Once we have the finalists selected, these finalists will be going through a series of mentorships and workshops that will help them aid their pathway into space expansion. So that's called the Space Expansion Program, where we'll be helping you in terms of both technical and commercialization aspect. Lastly, we have the Humans in Space Symposium happening during late October. This is also where the finalists will be presenting live and where the awardees will be selected. But aside from that, we'll be having keynote sessions, networking sessions, and panel sessions to really expand the discussion on space exploration topics and how we can really support human life in space and bring back those benefits down to Earth. So that is basically the overview of this year's program. And now moving on to our special guest speaker. Our next speaker is Zack Fagan, the partner at Earth&Beyond Ventures. And he's been in the venture scene for almost a decade. So you'll be able to expect a lot of insights from him. And he has also been personally involved in the startup scene prior to entering the venture scene. So really excited about his session as well. So Zack, please take the floor.
Hey, thank you so much. Excited to be here. Thanks everyone for joining. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to give sort of a very quick introduction to what is new space, but ideally with a spin of how is an investor looking at the new space opportunity. So why is it that investment is happening there now? What is it that people are looking at? And like mentioned, I'm from Earth&Beyond Ventures, and we're a new Israeli pre-seed fund investing in deep tech and new space. So this is our perspective as well as a fund. So let's start with a very basic question. What is new space, right? So everyone knows what space is. What's new space? So I think a very easy way to try and think about that is if I asked you 30 years ago, 20 years ago, what do you think about when you think about space? Your answer would probably be NASA, right? You're thinking about large government-sponsored projects, very expensive, defense or scientific discovery oriented. If I ask you that same question today, Your answer is probably something like SpaceX or Axiom, right? So we're talking about private companies that are commercializing space, that are working in a competitive market, basically trying to bring access to space. And what that has caused is a massive reduction in costs, making space much more accessible, right? So if once space was the realm of governments, defense, only a few astronauts could get to space or dream about space, today, any startup with the massive reduction that's happened in terms of launch costs, right? We're talking about an 18 times reduction in launch costs over the past 30 years. Any startup can dream about sending something to space and doing something in space. People can dream about going to space. It's a different world. And we can see that here as well. This is sort of the pivot that happened from government launches, shifting into commercial, bringing space into the private realm. In parallel, there's been a massive shift in infrastructure in space as well, right? So we're talking about infrastructure going to space has changed, the infrastructure in space has changed as well. So if traditionally we thought about large satellites the size of, a school bus that cost billions of dollars, today we're talking about much smaller satellites, as small as the size of a shoebox. So that's a pivot that we've seen over the past years as well. So as of 2011, there were just 39 small sats in orbit. Whereas if you look at just last year, there were over 2,000 new small sats launched to space. That's a massive change in terms of the size, the expense, and the cost of getting something into space and operating in space, and also the accessible infrastructure in space. And companies like Axiom are coming and trying to take that even to the next level by building infrastructure in space that provides access to physical real estate, right? So the opportunity to actually go into space and put something and use it in space on the International Space Station or in future on private space stations. So what is new space? New space is a new opportunity. From an investment perspective, we're talking about a new opportunity, a commercial market that is cheaper, more accessible, more usable, more viable, something that we can now actually access and use. It is no longer a dream. It's something that real companies can think about and do. And we see that because today's space is already providing tangible benefit right here on Earth. We're no longer talking about deep space scientific discovery. We're talking about things that people are already doing right now, are planning about doing in the near future, and are thinking about doing in the years to come. So already people are using space for Earth observation to look at disaster management, weather prediction. Obviously, satellite communications has been around for years. Medical research is beginning to happen in space as well, using unique properties that exist in space to perform new medical research. Manufacturing is something that's going to start being moved to space. Amazon, AWS is already starting to provide data storage services in space. So space is something that is already providing real tangible value on Earth. And the result is obviously increased investment in the space. Venture capitalists and investors have seen this trend, have seen the usability and accessibility of space, and investments have risen. The number of investors investing in the space has risen, and the number of acquisitions has risen as well. So what is the opportunity? How can we break it down, and how can we think about it in a way that makes sense and think about what it is that's attractive to an investor? So obviously not every new company is going to be a SpaceX developing massive infrastructure. So if we look at the space ecosystem, we have basically upstream, which is going from Earth into space. We have midstream, what happens in space, and we have downstream, which is coming down from space to Earth. And within each of those segments, there are countless opportunities for startups to access. So for example, you can be developing a new fuel that powers the SpaceX rocket. You can be developing a manufacturing capability that you can put into space. You can be developing a new sensor that can go onto a satellite to provide new and unique Earth observation capabilities. So the opportunities are endless. And if you think about the challenge that we're discussing right now, if you look at the midstream market, what's happening in space, there's massive potential for growth there over the years to come as that becomes increasingly accessible and more opportunity to put things into space. Now to pivot that into how does Earth and Beyond look at this? So we're thinking about it very much so in that same vein, right? So when we look at investment opportunities, we're looking at the potential that can happen in space, and we sort of view it from the component level, right? So obviously there are full systems like SpaceX, but then like I mentioned, there are any number of components that can fit into the value chain. And so when we take a look at an investment, we're looking first and foremost at the underlying technology. We're a deep tech investor. And then we look at the end applications that those things can have. And we have a thesis that we're following that we call dual application. And not dual application like defense. We're looking at things that have potential earthbound applications and spacebound applications. And so the way we think about it is take, for example, a new company developing a sensor based on optics. And they've developed an innovative sensor, and that sensor can be put onto a car to power autonomous vehicles. Potentially, that same sensor with some minor tweaks could be put onto a satellite to provide Earth observation service. And so that's where we think that the massive opportunity in space exists. We see different opportunities across the 3 levels of upstream, midstream, and downstream, different component opportunities to go in. And we also see the opportunity to take existing earthbound technologies and bring them into space. So just to conclude for 1 second on who we are, like we mentioned, we are a pre-seed fund. We're doing early stage investments. So always happy to meet with new companies. The other thing that we do is we do ecosystem building activities. So we're looking to work with key stakeholders in Israel and abroad on working to build up the Israeli ecosystem for new space and for deep tech. And through that, we're very happy to be working with Boryang on this opportunity and on the Humans in Space Channel.
Thank you, Zach, for sharing your insights on the space industry from an investor's perspective. We are again very glad to be partnering with Earth&Beyond Ventures, and we are confident that their extensive knowledge will provide further depth to our collaborative projects. So moving on, we would like to address some questions that we have received in advance for Zach to answer. The questions are, what is the concept of dual application in the context of space? And why is dual application relevant now when it was not in the past? So Zach, would you kindly address these questions for our audience, please?
Yeah, my pleasure. So that's a very important question, and I think it's one of the key opportunities that exists in space today. There are obviously many space-focused companies that exist in the world today, but there are many more companies that are not focused on space. And that could be for any number of reasons. Obviously, we didn't think about space, we had another application in mind, or it could be from the angle of they simply didn't know that space is accessible, right? So if you think about space and you think it's very far away, you think it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of luck to get something into space, and they don't know that it's possible. And so when we look at investment, one of the things that we look at is we often talk with companies that have no idea about space and they've never considered space in the first place. But sort of like the example I gave before about the sensor built for a car, we're able to think together with companies on, is there a potential space application that makes sense, that can fit into your business model? And that is a way that companies with existing earthbound applications can access this dual application and bring their technology into space as well. And we think that this is a great way to broaden the number of companies that are active in space and broaden companies' independent value as well, because a company that has more potential applications and revenue streams is generally more valuable. And in terms of why we think it's relevant now as opposed to in the past, I think it's sort of explained by that pivot I was discussing before in terms of what is new space. So it's more relevant now because it's easier to get to space. It's cheaper to get to space. It's more accessible. Companies like SpaceX have made it cheaper. Companies like Axiom are providing physical infrastructure for you to go ahead and actually perform an experiment in space. If you're a pharmaceutical company or a medical device company that you were performing your research only on Earth and you want to access potential resources in space, that's now something that's becoming possible. The same for building sensors that can go onto satellites and so on. So the space industry has now caught up to the technology on Earth in terms of infrastructure, or it's in the process of catching up. And so now it's something that's much more accessible than ever was before.
Thank you, Zach, for sharing with us your expertise, insights in this area, and again, addressing the questions that were received in advance. If you may have any other questions for Zach, please leave them in the Q&A chat box, and we will address them at the very end during the live Q&A session. So moving on, to the second big part of our session today, we'll be delving into a significant discussion centered on the challenges and initiatives of human space exploration. Building upon Zach's earlier insights on the space tech industry from an investor standpoint, our focus will now shift to addressing the challenges faced in human space exploration and the initiatives undertaken by various space organizations to help solve these challenges. To provide us with more comprehensive insights, we are honored to have two distinguished guest speakers with us today. Audrey Berthier, the Executive Director of MEDIS, Institute for Space Medicine and Physiology, who has over 20 years of experience in this field. We also have here today Harel Baris, who is the head of ARC Space Lab and also a physician at the ARC Innovation Center of Shiva Medical Center. So without further ado, we'll dive straight into the first discussion question to be first addressed by Audrey, followed by Harel. So first, Audrey, could you please tell us what you think are some challenges and opportunities in space?
Okay, hello everyone. I will start by the opportunities. I think Zack mentioned it. We're at a fantastic moment in the space history where there is a lot of new opportunities. You have on the one side all the research required for the new exploration mission from LEO to Moon and Mars. But on the other side, you have all these new commercial offers which are offering many opportunities with a change to the access to space, more accessible, quicker, cheaper, and so on. Coming back to the challenges related to space exploration, so of course the objective is to maintain crew health and performances, and also the well-being of the crew. As you know, space is a very specific environment, and the body has to adapt to this environment. The astronaut, the crew has to adapt to this environment, to microgravity, to partial gravity, but also to confinement, isolation, radiation, and so on. Based on many years of research that has been done in the ISS, we know now the different mechanism of adaptation, but we really still need to limit this side effect of the space environment to maintain crew health. So the first objective is, of course, to better understand this mechanism of adaptation, but also to develop prevention measures, integrated countermeasure programs, combining exercise, nutrition, pharmaceutical countermeasures, and other, let's say, space-specific countermeasures. Radiation is going to be a big challenge. Psychological aspects are going to be also a big challenge. Another important aspect is that we have to enable the crew to manage any type of medical event in this isolated situation. Medical autonomy will be essential. There is really a need to provide new technologies, new methods for assistive diagnostic and care. Meaning also trying to transfer predictive personalized medicine to this specific context, but also need for technologies in the field of digital health, expert system, innovative medical devices, and so on. All compatible with space constraints, of course, which is always challenging. And last but not least, you were calling that lifestyle, but of course we need to ensure that the crew will be and will stay in a healthy environment for all these missions. So environment control and life support system will be essential. This includes providing the relevant resources, nutrition, air, water, but also everything related to environment control, including microbial control. This is for the challenges related to space exploration, but many opportunities as well with space utilization, as you said.
Thank you, Audrey, for sharing some valuable insights, especially from the standpoint of a renowned research institute. We'll also like to hear from Harel on this question. So Harel, if you could share your insights on this matter, we would greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. So adding to all the interesting element that Audrey mentioned, the main challenge of being able to support human health in space is basically our lack of knowledge, lack of intuition. Everything we know basically is based on around 600 individuals, mostly healthy, highly selected, also mostly males, individuals that went under a government program. And now when we are seeing the the coming future of space tourism and our wishes to support deep space exploration missions to the moon and even Mars, we need to rethink everything that we know about human physiology and ensure that we're able to support crew health throughout all those endeavors. And our basic intuition is irrelevant, from the changes of the human heart in microgravity to the fact that sweat is not evaporating. Everything that we are taking for granted is just not relevant. And it's not only a challenge, it's also a wonderful opportunity, because we need to reimagine how we're providing care in a more cohesive way that we're not able to do here on Earth. How to imagine remote care application, how to support crewed well-being throughout long duration missions. Everything is open for innovation and reimagining current day methods to adapt and to innovate and open new possibilities for supporting the incredible missions to come, and later on being implemented on Earth and for Earth applications as well. The space or microgravity is not only a wonderful playground for remote care, it's also a wonderful resource for manufacturing, as Zack mentioned, manufacturing drugs in space. 3D organ printing is an interesting field that might be relevant for healthcare innovation and health application for Earth. And those areas and topics are so fascinating and exciting, and this is why we all here. A small challenge that you might be facing soon is the challenges of accessing the pre-knowledge and being able to collaborate with people who are more familiar with the different elements, from engineering to biology and physiology in space, is a crucial component of any of your initiatives. And I highly recommend you to facilitate a networking of potent advisors to bridge those knowledge gaps ASAP.
Thank you, Harel, for providing us your profound perspective on this. Again, for the audience, if you have any questions for either Audrey or Harel, please feel free to leave them in the Q&A chat box. So to summarize up until now, both Audrey and Harel have shared their insights on the challenges that pose obstacles to human space exploration. If we interpret this another way, it also means that there are numerous opportunities for the space community to embrace innovation and actively contribute their ideas and solutions to drive advancements in the field. So in line with this, our second discussion point will focus on the initiatives of space organizations and the various resources that are available for space enthusiasts to accelerate their ideas forward. We'll again be hearing from Audrey, followed by Harel on this question. So first, Audrey, could you tell us about some support programs and resources that startups and researchers can access to expand their ideas forward?
Yes, so indeed there are several programs, not enough, and I think there is really a need as well to improve the public-private partnerships, and this is why this challenge is amazing in that sense. But yes, at European level, you have both programs to support research related to exploration missions and also to space utilization. Of course, you have the program of the European Space Agency, but you also have some programs at national level supported by the national space agencies. Depending on your profile, on your project, if you're a startup, if you're a research team and so on, you have different programs and funding tools. For instance, at ESA level, you have this Business Incubation Center program, and you have also several accelerators. And regarding space utilization, of course, the agency is also supporting new program, new space offers. And especially ESA is supporting a program which is called Business in Space Growth Network, where they try to promote the development of new markets for the space providers. And we have the chance to coordinate a program which is called the Life Sciences Accelerator, the BSGN activity, where we try to bridge this gap between the space sector and the health sector and try to attract new users from the biotech field or pharma or cosmetic. So we are also here to provide our expertise in this field for startup or research companies, both from the health and space sector.
Thank you, Audrey.
Sorry.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Harel,
On our
please
side,
provide us with...
it might be, some of my tips might be more relevant for the Israeli crowd, but not only for us. The Israeli Innovation Authority has a yearly grant to support some early stage motivations, as well as the local space agency. We have some national programs like the Artemis program that we're participating in. Around that, there's some interesting initiatives and opportunities to collaborate. Regarding the human health in space, we are collaborating with Trish, an incredible organization that facilitate many of the new development around that. And I highly recommend to look through their website and see if there's any relevant opportunities for your ideas over there. And in addition to our Israeli Space Agency and the Ramon Foundation, which is an NGO aiming to accelerate space culture here in Israel. We have also the Rakia Foundation company that assists in conducting basic science and education around it in microgravity. And myself, if any of you will need an advice or any interesting insight regarding human physiology, feel free to reach. I'll be more than happy to assist as far as I can.
Thank you, Harel and Audrey, for sharing these valuable insights with us. It was really great getting to know more about the works of both the European side and the Israeli side. So we would once again like to express our sincere gratitude to our esteemed guest speakers, Audrey Berthier and Harel Baris, for their valuable contributions and insightful discussion points. I would like to toss the mic back to Betty, who will be moderating our live Q&A session.
All right, just like what Hannah said, thank you very much all for sharing your insight. And based on what Zack has shared in terms of the investor perspective and Audrey and Harel has shared in terms of incubation or research perspective, we are really at the cusp of really expanding the inter-application of Earth and space technology. And as you can see, it's not just about space launch, but we're already talking about other Earth-based technologies that can be applied to support human life in space, not only within the healthcare perspective, but also like supporting the habitation and data utilization in space. So we're really excited to see all your innovative ideas and how you think you can expand the application of your technology to even to space. So really excited to see all your applications coming in. But now as we move on to the Q&A session, we have some questions that have came in during the session, and we also have some questions that we previously received prior to the briefing session. So we'll be answering all of those. But in case you have additional questions, please feel free to send them through the chat box, even during the live Q&A. So first, we have some frequently asked questions answered here on the screen. So I think it would be best to give around a minute for everyone to read them, as they are mostly applicable to most of the applicants. So we have some questions. So we have some questions on the demographic origin of the applicants. This challenge is open to all applicants from all around the world. And in terms of startup application eligibility, the most important thing is that you have a working prototype. And just to add, for researchers, we're looking for early stage researchers who are within the TRL 1 to 3 level. So like theoretical testing and early laboratory testing level. So other questions? This is all about the application process. Right. Now, moving on to some of the questions that were pre-registered. So the first question that we received was, are you running the accelerator program this year? So last year we provided a 13-week accelerator program for the awardees. This year we're providing the space expansion program. So like it's not an accelerator program, but we're providing tailored workshops and mentorships depending on the needs of the finalists. And it's going to range from about 2 weeks to 3 weeks, depending on the depth of need for that specific finalist. And the content would specifically focus on expanding your application to space in terms of both technical and commercialization level. I hope that answered your question, but in case if it wasn't clear, please feel free to follow it up on the chat box. And now moving on to the second question, what are Boryang's investment conditions? So I guess this is only applicable to startup applicants, as researchers will be provided with research prize that's not constituted as an investment. But for the startup investment, we're providing $100,000 of equity investment, and our usual ask is around 8%. But this percent of the share, but this percentage would depend on the current stage of the applicant, and if there's any valuation that the applicant has, we'll also take that into consideration, and we'll be communicating directly with the startups once the startup has been awarded with a prize. And so there was another question on, will you share data with participants? And I think this question was specifically for startups or researchers that are focusing on data analytics, or like in terms of like research perspective. So we do not provide any data, but you are free to use any publicly available data to present your research finding or enhance your prototype. So we don't have any limitations as to what kind of data you'll be using. And just checking in for additional questions. Okay, the next question is, what will a researcher or university application require? So I think it's mainly focusing on the eligibility and also the application form content. First, for the eligibility, for the researcher has to be affiliated with a university in order to apply, meaning you're a researcher, assistant professor, or graduate student of a university, of an existing university. And in terms of the application form content, we have around 10 questions where we ask about the objective of your research, what kind of space health hazard you are trying to solve through your research proposal, and what are some key milestones that you have in plan alongside the budget proposal. So you can actually check all the list of questions that we'll be requesting in our website. Specifically in the Humans in Space Challenge section, when you scroll it down, you can see a guideline to all the application questions and the process of application. And the next question is, do you support researchers or basic research in health sector, which will lead eventually to translational application? So the short answer is yes. It is basically the research topic that we're looking for, like any research topic that tackle space health hazards as astronauts go into space, we'll be happy to accept that application. And another question is about ESA BSGN. So can we utilize ESA BSGN applications for this call? So I'm not quite sure if it's regarding the startup or research application, but basically I do think there's like a very high correlation to it, and Audrey can expound on this further. But if it meets all the questions that we have asked in the application form, then we're really happy to see your applications coming in. Audrey, do you think you can expound on this? Yeah,
I think the programs are very complementary, as you said. So the BSGN program, the last call that we published in the fall, is offering 50% funding for a space experiment from ESA, provided that you find or that we find altogether another funding sources. So this can be the opportunity to secure that. So yeah, indeed.
Yeah. I mean, Audrey is also going to be one of our evaluators, so I think that's also a very it's going to be an easier process for evaluation as well. And the next question is regarding the Startup Credit Award. So does the award cover a flight ticket to the ISS? How many winners are you planning to fly and when? So the short answer to this is we do not have a set number of winners to fly and test out their experiment in ISS, but we'll be selecting up to 10 startup awardees. And among those pool, we'll be selecting flight-ready and eligible startups to send their experiment in future Axiom space mission within the $500,000 of startup credit. So within that total pot, eligible startups will be splitting up the credit and using it to help them prepare for a flight experiment to ISS. And the eligibility will depend on your flight readiness and different sets of criteria. And this would definitely be informed. I mean, you will be informed once you're selected as an awardee within the startup section. All right. Oh, there's an interesting question, I think, for Harel or Audrey. Are real-time human metabolism measurement innovations crucial for advancing commercial space tourism to LEO and the moon? So I think it's regarding space healthcare technology for supporting human life in LEO and.
Okay, maybe I can try to answer, and Harel, he will complete. I'm not at all a specialist of metabolism measurements, but what I would say that we need biomarkers to follow the adaptation, the changes. We need predictive biomarkers and so on. So for sure, the human metabolism measurements might be very useful in that sense, and there are several publications already on that topic.
Adding to that is the importance of real time is relevant mostly for the ability to intervene and to change critical event. So if there's no way to influence the outcome, the real-time element is less critical. It's very important for research and to collect a continuous stream of relevant data, but the research elements and the applicable solution can be two separate efforts, and we can focus on each of them separately, just to reduce the risk and the challenges.
Thank you so much for your answer, Audrey and Harel. So for the interest of time, we'll have to end the Q&A session here. But in case there are some remaining questions that you may have, please feel free to email us. We'll leave the email address here on the screen. And we also have an in-depth explanation of the challenge topic, application process, and all the benefits that are offered to the applicants in our website. Again, www.careinspace.com. And to keep posted on the upcoming announcements and application processes and other benefits, I highly encourage you to follow our social handles. So we have LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. All right. So everyone, we thank you very much for attending today's briefing session. Thank you to our special guest speakers who spent the time to really share about their insight in expanding human life in space. And we really look forward to meeting all of you at the challenge. So please send us your applications away. And we highly encourage that you do as soon as possible in order to avoid any technical issues during the last few weeks of the challenge application. Thank you very much. Hope you all have a great day ahead.